Well, investors are gearing up for what is going to be a very busy week. We've got new data coming out on inflation. We'll also get a look at how retailers are holding up, and even a possible government shutdown could all be weighing on the markets this week. But we want to focus on today's market commentary here. More companies are striking a cautious tone this earnings season over the looming threat of an economic slowdown, causing investors to become more concerned over the weakening outlook for U.S. corporate earnings. But investors, maybe they shouldn't be as worried as they are right now. Yahoo Finance markets reporter Josh Schafer joining us here at the desk. And Josh, you're taking a look into some of the new research out from Goldman today.
Yeah, and Goldman's sort of highlighting that what we're seeing right now as far as earnings projections is pretty standard to see those forward projections start to fall at the end of the third quarter for 2020 or for Q4 and then going into 2024 too. That's not atypical. David Kostin pointing out that normally earnings projections fall about 4% at this time of year. And so when you think about it from a historical perspective, this isn't completely abnormal. Yes, there are a lot of bad headlines out there. We talk a lot about the macro headwinds, but for it to happen right now isn't necessarily out of the norm. And then I want to take a look at a graph that he highlighted because I thought it was interesting to see where these projections are being kicked down the most. You guys have talked a lot about healthcare this morning. I know you're going to be talking a lot about healthcare this week. Healthcare is still not getting a lot of love in terms of earnings. You see that top purple line there, if you exclude healthcare, would actually be the best. So right now, the street's still not feeling great about healthcare. And of course, your Mag 7 stocks still helping hold up earnings projections.
Yeah, it's really interesting here. I mean, and for the Magnificent Seven stocks, a lot of those companies that have been annexed to the AI conversation that have driven much of the returns that we've seen over the course of this year, from what Goldman is saying around some of their own individual names that they like going into next year or even the end of this year, where are they perhaps highlighting some of those players, and is there a common denominator among them?
Yeah, I mean, so healthcare clearly not one of them, right, as you saw there. And I think overall they seem to feel okay about Magnificent Seven as a whole, because in some ways it feels like most people right now, most of the strategy notes we read, if you feel okay about the market, you kind of have to feel okay about Magnificent Seven to some extent. There aren't a lot of people sort of saying, well, Mag 7's going to fall and then the Russell 2000 is going to come all the way up and small caps are going to be what saves us here. So I think if you're feeling relatively positive overall, yes, you're seeing some common denominator, and at least some of the Mag 7 players will be okay.
Important disclosure here. A lot of these notes, these look-ahead notes, tend to be optimistic. And you mentioned in Goldman, I go back to what Michael Wilson is out today with at Morgan Stanley, 7% earnings growth this year, and he's already predicting 14% earnings growth for 2025. So he's skipping over 2024. He says earnings could reaccelerate to double digits in 2025, and that's a tall order. And these estimates are suggesting nothing is going to go wrong with the economy, and inflation will stay down, and maybe oil won't spike to over $100 a barrel. So just very rosy outlooks by Wall Street. I would expect they will continue.
And it's interesting when you point out oil too, right? Because that is one of the main headwind stocks that you find sort of down in these notes, right? With the what could go wrong, it would be
it's a risk,
right?
Upside risk. Yeah. But here's our double-digit earnings growth estimates,
and the geopolitical risk that we have no idea about, right? But everyone's flagging that's coming out in all these 2024 outlooks. A lot of uncertainty out there still, for sure.
Yeah, one of the top concerns among CEOs, according to KPMG and their survey that they ran earlier this year. Josh, thanks so much for breaking this down for us. Appreciate it. Yahoo Finance's own Josh Schafer.